Hello everybody! We're here with another top-down video. Woo! Today, you're probably wondering what the heck I'm doing with this binder, but I just finished writing book one of the webcomic series that I have been working on for a while called Portal House. If you've been following me on Patreon, then you're probably very familiar with these characters and the story in general. And yeah, I've been working on it for a very long time. And I finished writing book one yesterday, just in time for my residency coming up. So I wanted to print everything out and put it into a binder, and I thought it'd be fun to film it. The binder is just like a standard 1.5-inch binder that I just got from Target. This was the only black one they had, so it's not exactly the one I would pick if given the choice, but I just felt like a black binder would be nice, classic, simple, and everything would pop. So just very straightforward. And I really want to decorate the outside, so I actually spent the past hour doing this art, which if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably already seen it. But I wanted to do like a cover art. I actually have two sizes here. It was inspired by this old vintage Portal House art I did back in 2017. I had made this small version as like a comparison, but I think I'm gonna put the big version here on the front. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I have some other art that I was debating on using. These are character sketches I had done of Harper for class. This, which is another old one, this is also from 2017. I did it at the same time as this. It was my Inktober theme at the time. But I really like this because it nails the setup, kind of like this haunted house sort of setup until you realize that's not really what the story is, but that's kind of the initial setup. So I want this definitely somewhere. My original idea was to have it as the front, but I really like this as the front instead. It's so cute. They're so cute. So maybe in the back here, that might be something, but I kind of like the back as not having anything. I guess for now, I'll just have it here. And then maybe we'll put these little Harper dudes in the front here. For now, just for now. I just want to get this stuff going. And then this is my other idea for the front cover. This is a piece of art I had done in 2020, so 4 years ago, so kind of in between this one and this one. I really like it. I like the kind of 90s vintage thing. I like them popping out of the frame. I forgot I actually had this printed. I don't know if this is the style I necessarily want to go for. I think this is like the aspirational, what the webcomic might actually look like style. I used Procreate and a kind of the standard inking pen, the studio pen, just really, really thin to kind of get that sketchy look, but still clean. And I used a watercolor flow for the coloring, which I really like because I'm getting kind of that ink wash texture look. This is a bit more flat, which I don't have a problem with. And I'm debating also maybe cutting it to be smaller because there's so much white space, but maybe for now, this can go in. Maybe this guy could go in the back. That could be cute. Put him in the back. There. So I'm liking that. Okay, cool. This is so cute. This is so cute. Maybe it's just because I just drew it, but I'm really liking how this is looking. All right. So that's, I guess, the art, the least important part. Now for the real meat of this. So prior to this, I had printed out everything. For my editing process, I really like everything printed out so I can just read it in one go, and then actually physically mark everything up. So I printed all of Portal House book one out. This is 16 chapters. Was originally going to be 20, but I decided to edit my outline a bit, and then that significantly dropped my chapter count and fixed my writer's block, and I finished it yesterday ahead of schedule. So that's the actual book. I think it's like 148 pages, but I did format it so that each chapter would start on a new page, as you see. So it would be a bit shorter if I wasn't formatting it that way by about maybe 6 or 7 pages. But then I also, because I kind of really want to be as offline as possible while I'm at my residency, I also just printed off all of my reference resource material too. So that includes my outline, which is several pages all in itself. The entire story I'm planning to be 52 chapters, and I've got about 6 or 7 bonus chapters. It might be 51 chapters, we'll see, but there's my outline. And then I have, these characters are in a band, so I have song lyrics that I wanted printed out. I have my, of course, character sheets, character bio, notes. Then I have my world building, just because, you know, it's easy to lose track of this stuff. My initial brainstorming, this sort of version comparison point. So I'm using version 3, which I guess technically is version 4 because I edited the outline, but it's basically version 3. But it basically combines the first 2 versions that I had iterated of the story that I'd started writing. I kind of looked at the differences between version 1 and version 2 and then decided what I wanted for version 3. But I think this is still helpful to have as a reference point so I don't lose track of like what I've already written, even if it doesn't quite fit with this version or the past version. And then this is house research because it's called Portal House, so the house is pretty important. It's definitely a fixture character in at least the first half of the story, and this house is very like specific, so I was just printing out references to help me with eventually designing the house. I actually had built the house in The Sims, but I really don't like how like the front and the roofing look, so that's also where like this came in. So those are the reference materials that I printed off. Prior to filming, I went ahead and hole punched everything because I didn't think that would be very interesting to watch. Apologies if you are upset you're missing out on hole punching content. And then I went out and bought these dividers. Now, originally I was really excited to get like actual dividers, but then I thought maybe I would get just these sticky tab dividers because then I have more control on how things are spaced out. And this is like a set of 24, and I had wanted to get 25, so this works out perfect. And yeah, I just thought maybe this would be better. And then I don't have like a literal break every single time that I go to a new chapter. So that's essentially that. So I'm going to go ahead and start migrating stuff into the binder. It'll be time-lapse time, and I hope you enjoy. Cue the music. Now it's time for voiceover, Kareen, and they have a script. Woo! So I was actually debating whether to include voiceover for this or not. So if you would rather not hear me yap, feel free to mute me and just put on your own music, or skip to the last 2 minutes of the video where I actually go over the finished binder or whatever. But otherwise, I thought it might be fun to talk about my actual writing process, especially for a long-form, multi-book or multi-season webcomic like this, without necessarily getting into too many spoilers since this is still, at least at the time of filming this, unreleased. So generally speaking, I like to start with an outline, but before the outline, sometimes I'll brain dump like a bunch of stuff onto a page just to like get the big ideas out, which I definitely did here, as you saw in the brainstorm section, especially since, again, this is like the 3rd or 4th iteration of Portal House that I've tried writing, and it combines several elements of the first 2 iterations. So brainstorming and brain dumping was really helpful, sort of this stream of consciousness to just get everything out and formulate my thoughts on paper or screen so that I can look at what I have and then from there start kind of crafting my outline. For the outline, I try to subscribe to the sort of beat sheet format that you see in filmmaking. What that is, I try to summarize what happens in each beat, or in my case, chapter, in bullet points of 2 or 3 sentences. So basically, 1 bullet point per chapter. And that really worked for me in film school with animation, and it has continued to work for me with small and medium-sized projects. So for something this massive, which is at this point around 51 or 52 chapters of 24 pages each, that's like over 1,000 pages.
So I really need that outline to keep track of everything I want to happen. And more importantly, the pacing of these story beats. Now, I don't include absolutely everything that happens in each chapter bullet, but I try to think about the main beats of that chapter. Like, what's the most important thing that happens in this chapter as it pertains to the story, the characters, and the themes? I try to make sure each chapter progresses either the plot or the character development, ideally both, and I include that in my outline so that at a glance I can tell what's working, what's slow, what's too fast, etc. for the pacing. This really came in handy for me when I had my most recent bout of writer's block, and I had a feeling during it that I needed to edit my outline because the chapter just felt like it might not actually be plot or character relevant, which was making it harder to write. And I already knew it was a filler chapter, but I was still trying. I had found an angle to make it work, but then I realized that angle wasn't working anymore, and that's how I ended up with writer's block. So when I did actually end up editing my outline, I ended up cutting 4 chapters, including the one I was stuck on, from the first book alone, and 6 chapters got cut total from the entire series. But that meant because I had cut 4 from the first book, I basically could jump straight to the more fun chapters at the end of that first book, which the entire arc up to that point had been leading up to. So these were the big, melodramatic, super fun chapters that I was waiting, just could not wait to write, and then all of a sudden that obstacle was gone and I could just write it, and I wrote both of them in like one sitting. So sometimes writer's block for me is a case of I haven't daydreamed this specific scenario enough, since I'm someone who really has to see the story play out in my head like a movie before I can write it. But other times, as I learned, it's just you're not motivated because the chapter itself isn't motivated. And unfortunately, you do have to kill your darlings. But my friend did give me the great idea that instead of completely deleting those irrelevant or filler chapters, that I could just save them at the end as bonus material. So hopefully after Portal House is completely finished, whenever that is, I'll be able to revisit those chapters and have more fun with them. One final thing I use my outline for is I directly link my individual chapter documents to them as I write them. I also hyperlink my reference material, so it's like a source of truth document that I can just open to get to everything else. So that is really, really helpful. It's also a nice way to check off my project, since as you may know if you've been watching me, I'm very motivated by stickers, and it is a nice way to visually document and see my progress in a digital space. Now for how I actually write my chapters. You may have noticed, if you're paying close attention to these pages, I like to use a more structured approach. As of now, there isn't really a uniform, agreed upon comic scripting convention, so there's probably as many ways to script a comic as there are comic creators. But for film, there is definitely a structured way that the scripts should be formatted, similar to how playwriting is done. So as someone who took script writing and playwriting at my film school undergrad, I used that knowledge to create something that wasn't as strict, but still pretty structured in a kind of DIY script format, since I just didn't want to deal with using Celsius or an actual script writing tool because I was writing in Google Docs. So basically, I wrote all of Portal House so far in one master Google document, and I used headings to help organize that document for navigation, since Google Docs now has that ability. So I used heading 2 for my chapter titles and heading 5 for my pages. So I can jump to any chapter and any page from the sidebar. And when I say pages, I mean the actual comic page, not the document page. So for example, page 1 of the document might have 3 actual comic pages written on it, because one full letter page is not going to equal one full comic page. It's going to be a lot less, similar to in script writing for a film. Generally speaking, one page is about 1 minute, right? And that is not all dialogue either. So that said, I used italics for anything that wasn't dialogue and regular text for dialogue, which I structured by listing the character's name, then a colon, then their dialogue, and each of those lines is on its own double-spaced line. So if I'm writing something like Harper says hi to Sadie and Sadie says hi to Harper back, it would be Harper, it would be Harper on his own line, Harper, high, and then enter, so that it's, if I'm single spacing, enter, if it's add space after paragraph, just one, then Sadie, high back. So they're both on their own individual lines that are spaced out from each other. Parenthesis is for tone, unless it's in the italics, then it operates as a parentheses usually does. And for text messages, I put the sender's name in brackets, and for author notes, I would just write in red text, and usually in brackets as well. So I like using the script format for writing comics because it gives me a better idea of how many pages something will take, since I'm already thinking in pages. And it gets rid of any superfluous writing that isn't necessary that you might run into when you're writing prose. So I've tried to write Portal House's prose first, and it was really difficult to gauge how much could fit on a page. So a script really works best for me here, especially when I'm already delineating page 1 contains this and this, page 2 contains this and this. And I also think it's easier to describe the panels this way, since again, I don't have to worry about the actual merit of the writing that isn't dialogue, since everything that isn't dialogue is just visual information to help me or my beta reader understand how the page and drawings might look. So I can just go straight into, maybe this will have 3 panels, and the first panel will have this and XYZ. So it just really works for me, and yeah, that's how I write my comics.
This is the finished binder, story binder for Portal House that I'm excited about, at least for book 1. Let's do a really quick flip through of everything. So this is just opening, the basic thing. Initially, I was going to have all my references at the beginning and then the chapters at the end. I think it makes more sense, and it's just nice to open the book and just see this right here. So we go in order of the chapters. I've labeled all my sticky notes, or I guess binder tabs. So obviously 1 through 16 for the first 16 chapters. Then we get to our reference section. So we go O for outline. And then for the music, I just drew like a little music note. And then for the characters, I wrote a C for world building, a W for brainstorming, a B for my variants, a V, and obviously for the house, an H. So I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, very makes sense to me, which is who it needs to make sense to. And yeah, that is my binder. So I'm very excited, my story binder. So I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Maybe you'll be inspired to make your own, but yeah, it's pretty much just a place for me to keep all my stuff in like a print hard copy form so that I can do all my edits and etc. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.